Jake Morrison stood at the large window of the spaceship and watched the alien ships come closer. He had been working on the horizon's edge for 3 years now, but he had never seen anything like this before. The alien ships looked like they were made of glass and light. They moved through space like dancers, bending and twisting in ways that made his eyes hurt to watch. "They're beautiful," whispered Amy Carter, another officer standing next to him. "I've never seen ships like that before." Jake nodded, but said nothing. His job was to help translate and make sure the aliens felt welcome on their ship. He had studied their language for months, but he was still nervous. This was the first time humans would meet the Zephyrians face to face. The captain's voice came. "Over the speakers, all crew members report to your stations. Our guests will be arriving in 30 minutes. Jake walked quickly to the main meeting room. His hands were a little shaky, and he tried to calm down. He had met aliens before, through video calls, but never in person. The Zephyrians were supposed to be very advanced and very beautiful. Their princess was coming with them, and everyone said she was the most beautiful being in their whole race. The meeting room was big and bright, with earth flowers and pots around the walls. The humans had tried to make it look welcoming. Jake took his place at the translation desk and checked his equipment one more time. Captain Helen Brooks walked over to him. She was a tall woman, with gray hair and kind eyes. "Are you ready for this, Morrison?" "Yes, Captain. I've been studying their customs and language. I think I can handle it." "Good. Remember, this meeting could change everything between our species. We need to make a good first impression." Jake nodded and watched the main door. His heart was beating fast. Through the window, he could see one of the alien ships getting very close to their ship. It looked like a giant crystal, floating in space. Then the doors opened. The first Zephyrian who walked in took Jake's breath away. They were tall, much taller than humans, with skin that seemed to glow with a soft silver light. Their eyes were large and deep blue, like looking into the ocean. Their hair moved like it was underwater, even though there was no wind in the room. But then she walked in, and Jake forgot how to breathe. Princess Lyrile was the most beautiful being Jake had ever seen. She was taller than the others, with long, silver hair that seemed to float around her shoulders. Her skin glowed brighter than the rest, and her eyes were not blue but purple, like the color of space between stars. When she moved, it was like watching water flow or wind dance through trees. She wore a dress that looked like it was made of starlight, and around her neck was a necklace that pulsed with soft light. When she spoke to the other aliens, her voice sounded like music, like wind chimes on a quiet day. Jake realized he was staring and quickly looked down at his translation equipment. His face felt hot, and he hoped nobody noticed. Captain Brooks stepped forward and spoke in careful Zephyrian. "Welcome to our ship, honored guests. We are happy to meet you." The lead Zephyrian, who Jake knew was the princess's advisor, replied. In their musical language, Jake translated quickly. He says they are honored to be here and they bring greetings from their world. The meeting continued with formal speeches and gifts being exchanged. Jake translated everything, but he kept finding his eyes moving back to Princess Lyrile. She stood quietly behind her advisor, but Jake noticed that she was looking around the room with great interest. Her purple eyes took in everything, from the earth's flowers to the human faces to the way the lights worked. And sometimes he caught her looking at him the first time their eyes met. Jake felt something like electricity run through his body. She looked at him for just a moment, tilted her head slightly like she was curious, then looked away. But Jake's heart started beating, so fast he was sure everyone could hear it. The formal meeting lasted 2 hours. The Zephyrians were invited to stay on the human ship for a week to learn about human culture, and the humans would visit the Zephyrian ships to learn about their way of life. It was supposed to be a peaceful exchange between the two species. When the meeting ended, the aliens were shown to their rooms. Jake was packing up his translation equipment when he heard a soft voice behind him. "Excuse me?" He turned around and found himself face to face with Princess Lyrile. Up close, she was even more beautiful. Her skin really did glow with its own light, and her eyes seemed to hold tiny stars in them. She was much taller than Jake, but somehow that made her seem more graceful, not scary.
"Your Highness,"
Jake said, trying to remember the proper way to address her. He gave a small bow. She smiled, and Jake's heart did a little jump. You are the translator? Yes? Jake Morrison?
Yes, Your Highness.
How can I help you? I was wondering about something. During the meeting, I noticed the flowers. She pointed to the pots of Earth's flowers around the room. They are alive, but they do not move. How is this possible? Jake blinked. Of all the questions he expected, this was not one of them. Well, they do move, just very slowly.
Ow.
They turn toward the light and grow bigger over time, but they can't walk around like animals. Do? Her eyes went wide with wonder. Fascinating. On my world, all living things can move freely. These plants must be very patient. Suppose they are, Jake said. Not sure what else to say. Could you tell me more about them sometime? I find your world very interesting. Of course, Your Highness. I would be happy to. She smiled again, and Jake felt like the room got brighter. Please, when we are speaking privately, call me Lirale. I'm very curious about human customs. Before Jake could reply, her advisor appeared and spoke quickly in Zephyrion. Lirale nodded and turned back to Jake. I must go now, but I hope we can speak again soon. Jake Morrison. As she walked away, her dress trailing behind her like flowing water. Jake stood there feeling like his world had just been turned upside down. No one had ever said his name the way she did, with that slight musical accent that made it sound like a song. Later that evening, Jake sat in his small room and tried to make sense of what had happened. He had met alien princesses before, video calls during his training, but none of them had affected him like this. There was something about Lirale that made him feel like he was seeing color for the first time, but he knew it was dangerous to think like this. She was alien royalty, and he was just a translator from Ohio. Their species had just met for the first time. Getting personally involved could ruin everything. Still, as he lay in bed that night, Jake found himself thinking about purple eyes and silver hair, and the way she had said his name like it was something precious. He didn't know it yet, but Princess. Lirale was lying in her own bed just a few rooms away, thinking about kind brown eyes and the gentle way a human had explained flowers to her. She had never met anyone who made her feel so curious about everything, so eager to learn and explore. Neither of them slept very well that night, and both of them were looking forward to seeing each other again tomorrow. The next morning, Jake woke up early and checked his schedule. Captain Brooks had assigned him to be Princess Lirale's personal guide for the cultural exchange program. His job was to teach her about human customs and help her understand how humans lived. Jake felt nervous and excited at the same time. He had never been alone with alien royalty before, especially not someone who made his heart beat fast just by looking at him. He put on his best uniform and made sure his hair looked good, then felt silly for caring so much about how he looked. He met Princess Lirale in the ship's cultural center. It's a large room with displays showing different parts of human history and culture. She was already there, looking at a display about Earth's different countries. Her silver hair caught the light as she moved, and Jake had to remind himself to act professional. Good morning, Your Highness, Jake said with a small bow. She turned and smiled at him. Good morning, Jake, and please remember to call me Lirale when we are alone. I told you this yesterday. Right, sorry. Good morning, Lirale. Her name felt strange and wonderful in his mouth. She seemed to like the way he said it because her smile got bigger. So what will you teach me about humans today? She asked. Jake had planned to start with basic history, but looking at her curious, purple eyes, he decided to try something different. How about we start with something simple, like how humans eat? They went to the ship's dining hall, which was mostly empty since it was still early. Jake showed her the food machines and explained how humans ate 3 meals a day. Lirale was fascinated by everything. On Zephyria, we only need to eat once every few days, she explained, as Jake showed her how to use a fork. And our food is mostly liquids that we absorb through our skin. That sounds very different, Jake said. Here, try this. He'd gotten her a simple meal of bread, fruit, and soup. Lirale held the spoon carefully and took a tiny sip of the soup. Her eyes went wide. It is warm, and it has so many different tastes all at once. Jake laughed. You like it? Very much? How do humans think of putting so many flavors together? I guess we just like variety, Jake said. We get bored if Things are always the same. Lirelei looked thoughtful. Bored. This is an emotion I do not understand well.
Come in my world.
We find peace in sameness, in knowing what will happen next. Really? That sounds kind of lonely to me. Lonely? She tilted her head. What does this word mean? Jake realized he had stepped into something deeper than he expected. Lonely means feeling sad because you are by yourself or because nobody understands you. Lirelei was quiet for a long moment. I think I understand this feeling, but we do not have a word for it in our language. Something in her voice made Jake look at her more carefully. Despite being surrounded by her people and being the center of attention, there was something sad in her purple eyes. After breakfast, Jake took her to see different parts of the ship. He showed her the observation deck where humans like to look, at the stars, the exercise room where they stayed healthy, and the recreation room where they played games and read books. Lirelei was most interested in the recreation room. She picked up different books and asked Jake to explain what they were about. When he told her about stories and novels, it's about books where humans wrote about imaginary people and places, she seemed amazed. You mean humans create stories that are not real, just for pleasure? She asked. Yes, we call it fiction. Helps us explore ideas and emotions in a safe way. Unzafria, we only record true events. We believe that false stories are dangerous because they might confuse people about what is real. Jake thought about this. But sometimes false stories can teach us true things about life and feelings. Lirelei looked at the book in her hands, which was a simple love story about two people from different backgrounds who fell in love despite the obstacles. Could you read some of this to me? Want to understand? They sat together on a couch, and Jake read her the first chapter of the book. As he read about the two main characters meeting for the first time, he became very aware that Lirelei was sitting close to him, listening carefully to every word. Her hair smelled like flowers, but flowers he had never smelled before. When he finished the chapter, Lirelei was quiet for a moment. The woman in the story, she feels something for the man, even though she just met him. Yes, the author is describing what humans call attraction, or maybe the beginning of love. Love, Lirelei repeated the word slowly. We have heard of this human emotion, but I do not think I understand it correctly. Could you explain? Jake felt his face get warm. How could he explain love to someone who had never experienced it, especially when he was starting to think he might be feeling it himself? Love is when you care about someone so much that their happiness becomes more important than your own, he said carefully. When you want to be with them all the time, and when thinking about them makes your heart beat faster. Lirelei put her hand over her heart. Your heart beats faster? Why? I don't know the scientific reason. It just happens when you feel strong emotions. Show me, she said. What? Put your hand here. She placed her hand on her chest, and tell me when your heart beats faster. Jake knew this was probably not a good idea, but he couldn't say no to those curious purple eyes. He placed his hand carefully on her chest, just over her heart. Through the fabric of her dress, he could feel a steady rhythm, but it was different from a human heartbeat. It was slower and seemed to pulse with the same light that glowed in her skin. Now think about something that makes you feel love, she said softly. Without meaning to, Jake found himself looking into her eyes, and immediately his heart started beating much faster. Lirelei's eyes went wide as she felt the change in his heart beat through his hand. Oh, she whispered. I can feel it. Your heart is ... dancing. They stayed like that for a moment, Jake's hand on her chest, both of them looking into each other's eyes. Jake felt like the whole universe had stopped moving, except for their two hearts. Then the door opened and Amy Carter walked in. She stopped when she saw them and quickly looked away. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Jake quickly moved his hand away and stood up. His face felt very hot. It's okay, Amy. We were just, discussing human biology. Amy nodded but didn't look convinced. Captain Brooks wants to see you, Jake, when you have a moment. After Amy left, Jake and Lirelei looked at each other awkwardly. The moment was broken, but something had changed between them. I should go see the captain, Jake said. Yes, of course. Lirelei stood up smoothly. Thank you for teaching me about human emotions today. It was very educational. As Jake walked to the captain's office, he couldn't stop thinking about the feeling of Liralay's heartbeat under his hand and the way she had looked at him when his own heart started racing. He was in trouble, and he knew it. Captain Brooks was waiting for him with a serious expression. "Morrison, I need to talk to you." "About the princess." Jake's stomach dropped. "What about her, Captain?" "Some of the crew have noticed that she seems very interested in you specifically. I need you to be careful. Can't afford any complications with this diplomatic mission." "I'm just doing my job, teaching her about human culture." Captain Brooks studied his face carefully. "Make sure that's all you're doing, Morrison. The future of humans-Afarian relations could depend on how well this exchange goes." As Jake left the captain's office, he realized that his feelings for Liralee were becoming impossible to hide. And from the way she had looked at him today, he was starting to think she might be feeling something similar. But they were from different worlds, different species. She was a princess, and he was just a translator. Nothing good could come from these feelings. Still, as he walked back to his room, Jake couldn't forget the way Liralee had said his heart was dancing. Because that's exactly what it felt like when he was with her. 3 weeks had passed since the cultural exchange began. Jake found himself looking forward to every moment he spent with Liralee. They met every day in different parts of the ship, and each conversation made him understand her better. But lately, she seemed quieter, more thoughtful than before. Today, she had asked to meet him in the ship's botanical garden. This was Jake's favorite place on the horizon's edge because it reminded him of home. The small room was filled with plants and flowers from Earth, and there was even a tiny waterfall that made peaceful sounds. Jake arrived first and waited by the roses. He had learned that Liralee loved flowers because they were so different from the plants on her world. On Zephyria, all plants could move around freely, but Earth flowers stayed in one place and grew slowly toward the sun. When Liralee walked into the garden, Jake noticed immediately that something was wrong. Her usual bright smile was missing, and her purple eyes looked sad. Her silver hair seemed to glow less brightly than usual. "Hello, Jake," she said softly. "Hi, Liralee. Are you okay? You seem upset about something." She walked over to stand beside him near the roses. For a moment, she just looked at the red flowers without saying anything. Jake waited patiently. He had learned that sometimes Liralee needed time to find the right words in his language. "Jake, I have been thinking about many things lately," she finally said. "About my world, about your world, about the differences between us." "What kind of differences?" Jake asked, though he had a feeling he knew what she meant. "The diplomatic mission will end soon. In 5 days, my people and I will return to Zephyria." Her voice was very quiet. "And when I go back, my life will return to the way it was before." Jake felt his stomach drop. He had known this day would come, but he had tried not to think about it. "What will happen when you go back?" Liralee turned to look at him, and he could see pain in her beautiful eyes. "I will marry Lord Velen of the Northern Territories. The marriage was arranged when I was very young. It will join our 2 families and make both of them more powerful." "Do you love him?" Jake asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. "I have never met him," Liralee said simply. "Love is not important for royal marriages on my world. Only power and duty matter." They walked slowly along the path between the flower beds. Jake could hear the small waterfall making its gentle sounds, but today, it didn't make him feel peaceful. His heart felt heavy knowing that Liralee would leave soon and marry someone she didn't even know. "That doesn't sound fair," Jake said. Fair? Liralee looked at him with curiosity. What does this word mean? Fair means that everyone gets treated the same way, that everyone has the same chances to be happy. It means you should get to choose what happens in your own life. Choose, Liralee repeated the word slowly. You have used this word many times when teaching me about human culture. Your people believe that everyone should be able to choose their own path. Yes. We believe that every person has the right to make their own decisions, especially about important things like who they marry. They stopped walking and sat on a small bench near the waterfall. Liralee was quiet for a long time, thinking about what Jake had said. On my world, we believe that some people are born to make choices for others, she said finally. The royal family makes choices for the nobles, The nobles make choices for the common people. Everyone has their place, and everyone knows what is expected of them. But what about what you want? Jake asked. What about your own happiness? Lirelei looked at him with those deep purple eyes. I've never been asked what I want before. No one has ever cared about my happiness, only about my duty. Jake felt angry at her whole world, at the people who had never bothered to ask a beautiful, intelligent woman what she wanted from life. Well, I'm asking now. What do you want, Lirelei? It was quiet for so long that Jake thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely louder than a whisper. I want to stay here. I want to keep learning about your world and your people. I want to keep talking to you every day and discovering new things. She paused and looked down at her hands. But most of all, I want to understand this feeling I have when I am with you. Jake's heart started beating faster. What feeling? When I am with you, my heart does what you call dancing. When you smile at me, I feel warm inside, like I am standing in sunlight. When you explain things to me, I want to listen forever. When you are not there, I miss you. She looked up at him. Is this what humans call love? Jake felt like he couldn't breathe properly. Here was the most beautiful being he had ever met, telling him that she might love him. But she was also telling him that she had to leave in 5 days to marry someone else. It sounds like it might be, he said carefully. Lirelei moved closer to him on the bench. Jake, I have been watching how humans show affection to each other. I have seen couples holding hands and kissing. I have read about dating in the books you gave me. Yes. Jake's voice came out strange and tight. I have been thinking about what you told me about human courtship, about how your people choose their partners based on feelings and compatibility. Jake's heart was dancing so hard now that he was sure she could hear it. What about it? Lirelei turned to face him completely. Her purple eyes looked directly into his brown ones, and Jake felt like she could see into his soul. Why don't you date me, human? She murmured softly, her voice like music in the quiet garden. The question hit Jake like lightning. His heart started dancing so wildly that his whole body seemed to shake with it. Here was Princess Lirelei, beautiful and kind and intelligent, asking him if he would court her. The simple question asked, with such honest vulnerability, made him feel like his whole world had just changed. For a moment, Jake couldn't speak at all. Joy and terror fought in his chest. Joy because the woman he was falling in love with seemed to feel the same way. Terror because of all the reasons why this was impossible. Lirelei, he finally managed to say, his voice shaking slightly. You know, it's not that simple. Your people, my people, the whole diplomatic mission. I am asking you to forget about all of that for a moment, she interrupted, moving even closer to him. I am not asking you what your duty tells you, or what other people expect. I am asking you what your heart tells you. Jake looked into her beautiful alien eyes and saw hope and fear and something that looked like love. He thought about everything that made this impossible. She was royalty. He was just a translator. They were from different species. She was supposed to marry someone else in a few months. But then he thought about the past 3 weeks, about how much he looked forward to seeing her every day, about how her laugh made him happy, and her smile made the whole room seem brighter, about how talking to her was the best part of every day. My heart tells me, Jake said slowly, taking her glowing hand in his, that I have never met anyone like you, alien or human. Lirelei's whole face lit up with the most beautiful smile Jake had ever seen. Her skin glowed brighter, and her purple eyes sparkled like stars. Then why don't you try? She whispered. And looking into her hopeful face, Jake realized that maybe, just maybe, some things were worth the risk. Jake's answer came not with words, but with action. He gently squeezed Lirelei's glowing hand in his, and looked into her purple eyes. Yes, he said quietly. I want to try. The smile that spread across Lirelei's face was brighter than any star Jake had ever seen. Her whole body seemed to glow with happiness, and Jake felt his own heart fill with warmth. Really? She whispered. Really? Jake said. But we have to be careful. If the wrong people find out, it could cause problems for both our species. Lirelei nodded seriously. I understand.
We will keep it secret.
What started that day in the botanical garden became the most wonderful and terrifying time of Jake's life. They began meeting in secret, finding quiet corners of the ship where no one would see them. Late at night, when most of the crew was sleeping, they would walk through the empty corridors and talk about everything Jake taught. Lyra lay about human customs of romance. He showed her how humans held hands, how they walked close together, how they looked into each other's eyes when they talked. The first time he held her hand properly, with their fingers interlaced, Lyra stared at their joined hands in wonder. "It feels different than I expected," she said softly. "Warmer, more ... connected." "That's the point," Jake said, smiling. At her reaction, Lyra taught Jake about Zephyrian ways of showing affection. She explained that her people could share memories and emotions by touching foreheads together. When she first did this with Jake, he gasped as he suddenly felt what she was feeling: happiness, wonder, and something deep and warm that made his chest tight. "You can feel my emotions?" he asked in amazement. "Yes, and now you know that what I feel for you is real." The sensation of feeling her emotions directly was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. It was like seeing color for the first time or hearing music after being deaf. Through her touch, he could feel how much she cared for him, how happy he made her, and how scared she was about having to leave. They found safe places to meet around the ship. Sometimes they sat in the observation deck late at night, watching the stars and talking quietly. Sometimes they met in the library, pretending to study while actually just enjoying being near each other. The botanical garden became their special place, where they felt most comfortable being themselves. During one of their secret meetings, Jake brought his portable music player. "I want to show you something humans do when they care about each other," he said. He played a slow, gentle song from Earth, something with soft instruments and a melody that made people think of love. Then he stood up and held out his hand to Lyra. "What is this?" she asked, taking his hand. "Dancing. It's a way humans move together to music. It's romantic." Jake showed her how to put one hand on his shoulder and hold his other hand. He put his free hand carefully on her waist, surprised by how perfectly they fit together despite their height difference. Then he began to move slowly, teaching her the basic steps. Lyra was a quick learner. Soon, they were moving together smoothly, turning slowly in the small space between the flower beds. Her silver hair caught the soft light, and her dress flowed around them like water. Jake had never felt anything so perfect in his life. "I understand. Now why humans enjoy this," Lyra said as they swayed together. "It feels like we are one person instead of two." "That's exactly right," Jake said, looking into her eyes. As they danced, Jake realized he was completely in love with her, not just attracted to her beauty or fascinated by her alien nature, but truly, deeply in love with who she was as a person. Her curiosity about everything, her gentleness, her intelligence. The way she listened to him like everything he said was important, but their happiness was shadowed by the knowledge that it couldn't last. Every day brought them closer to the end of the diplomatic mission. When Lyra would have to return to her world and marry someone she didn't love, 2 weeks into their secret relationship, Captain Brooks called Jake to her office again. Jake's stomach dropped as he walked through the corridors, worried that someone had seen him and Lyra together. Captain Brooks was sitting behind her desk with a serious expression. "Morrison, I need to ask you a direct question, and I need an honest answer." "Yes, Captain." "Are you romantically involved with Princess Lyra?" Jake felt his face go red. He had practiced lying about this, but looking at Captain Brooks's kind but stern face, he couldn't do it. "Yes, Captain, I am." Captain Brooks sighed and rubbed her forehead. "Jake, do you understand what this means? If the Zephyrian Council finds out that their princess is involved with a human, they could see it as an insult. They might cancel the peace treaty." "I know, Captain. We've been very careful. Not careful enough. Some of the crew have noticed the way you two look at each other." "Amy Carter came to me yesterday with concerns." Jake felt angry at Amy, then immediately felt guilty. She was just doing what she thought was right. "Captain, I know this is complicated, but Lyra and I really care about each other. Isn't that worth something?" "Personal feelings don't matter when the peace between two species is at stake," Captain Brooks said firmly. "I'm sorry, Jake, but I have to order you to end this relationship immediately. Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Captain, please, that's an order, Morrison. You will not see Princess Lirelei alone again, except for official cultural exchange activities. Is that understood? Understood, Captain. That night, Jake met Lirelei in the botanical garden to tell her about his conversation with Captain Brooks. When he explained that they had been ordered to stop seeing each other, Lirelei's face went very pale, and her glow dimmed. So it is. Over? She asked quietly. I don't know, Jake said honestly. The captain is right that this could cause problems between our peoples, but I don't know how to just stop caring about you. Lirelei took his hands in hers and pressed their foreheads together. Through their connection, Jake felt her sadness and fear, but also her determination. I have been thinking about what you taught me about choice, she said. My whole life, other people have made choices for me, or I would live. What? I would study who I would marry. But you have shown me that I can choose my own path. What are you saying? I am saying that for the first time in my life, I want to choose something for myself. I choose you, Jake Morrison. I choose love over duty. Jake felt hope and terror fight in his chest. But what about your arranged marriage? What about your responsibilities to your people? I do not know yet. But I know that I cannot go back to my old life and pretend that these feelings do not exist. You have changed me, Jake. You have shown me what it means to be free. As they held each other in the quiet garden, surrounded by earth flowers and alien starlight, Jake realized that their love story was about to become something much bigger than just two people caring for each other. Lirelei was talking about defying everything she had been taught, about choosing love over the expectations of an entire civilization, and Jake knew that whatever happened next, he would stand beside her and face it together. The night before the Zephyrian ships were supposed to leave, Jake couldn't sleep. He walked through the empty corridors of the horizon's edge, thinking about how empty his life would feel when Lirelei was gone. Tomorrow, she would return to her world and marry a stranger, and he would go back to being just a translator who had once loved an alien princess. He was surprised to find Lirelei waiting for him in the botanical garden. She was standing by the waterfall, her silver hair glowing softly in the dim light. When she turned to look at him, Jake could see that she had been crying. Zephyrian tears looked like tiny diamonds on her cheeks. I thought you might come here, she said quietly. I couldn't sleep, Jake admitted. Tomorrow feels too final. Lirelei walked over to him and took his hands. Jake, I have made a decision. Tomorrow morning, I am going to ask Captain Brooks for something called political asylum. Jake's heart stopped. What, Lirelei? That's incredibly dangerous. If your people refuse, then I will have chosen my own path and faced the consequences, she said firmly. You taught me that having the right to choose is the most important thing. Well, I choose you. I choose love. I choose freedom. But you could lose everything. Your title, your family, your whole world. Lirelei smiled sadly. What good is a world where I cannot choose my own happiness? What good is a family that never asked what I wanted? What good is a title that comes with a life I do not want to live? Jake felt proud and terrified at the same time. Are you sure about this? I have never been more sure of anything in my life. The next morning, everyone gathered in the main meeting room for the farewell ceremony. The Zephyrian delegation stood on one side, ready to return to their crystal ships. The human crew stood on the other side, many of them sad to see their alien guests leave. Jake stood with the other officers, his heart pounding as he watched Lirelei. She looked calm and beautiful, but he could see the determination in her purple eyes. Captain Brooks was giving a speech about friendship between species when Lirelei stepped forward. The whole room went quiet. Captain Brooks, Lirelei said in clear, careful English. Before we leave, I have a formal request to make. Of course, Your Highness. What can we do for you? I request political asylum aboard this human vessel. Wish to remain here and not return to Zephyria? The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Then everyone started talking at once. The Zephyrian advisor looked shocked and angry. Several human officers looked confused. Captain Brooks looked like someone had just told her the ship was about to explode. "Your Highness," the Zephyrian advisor said quickly in their musical language, "you cannot be serious. Your duty, your marriage, your people need you." Lirelei answered him in Zephyrian, but her voice was strong and clear. Jake didn't need translation to understand that she was standing her ground. Captain Brooks held up her hand for silence. "Princess Lirelei, this is a very serious request. Are you certain this is what you want?" "Yes, Captain. I am completely certain. May I ask why you want to stay?" Lirelei looked around the room, her gaze stopping briefly on Jake before she looked back at Captain Brooks. "I have learned much about human culture during my time here. I have learned about the right to choose one's own path in life. On my world, my entire future has been decided for me since birth. I will marry someone I do not love, for political reasons. I will live a life that brings me no joy." Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "But humans have taught me that love is not a weakness. Love is the strongest force in the universe. It can bridge any gap between people, even people from different worlds. If our species are truly going to be friends, we must honor this truth." The Zephyrian advisor spoke angrily to her, but Lirelei shook her head. "I am not abandoning my people," she said, switching back to English so everyone could understand. "I am showing them a new way to live, a way where individuals can choose their own happiness." "This is completely unacceptable," the advisor said in heavily accented English. "Princess Lirelei must return with us. The council will not allow this. Council cannot force me to return if I do not wish to," Lirelei replied calmly. "According to the diplomatic agreements our peoples signed, I have the right to request asylum if I believe I am in danger." "In danger? From your own people?" "I am in danger of living a life without love, without choice, without hope. That is a kind of death." Captain Brooks looked very uncomfortable. "Your Highness, this could cause serious problems between our species. Your people might see this as an insult." Or, Lirelei said, they might see it as an opportunity to learn something new. The argument continued for over an hour. The Zephyrian delegation demanded that Lirelei return with them. They threatened to cancel the peace treaty. They said her behavior was shameful and would bring dishonor to her family. But Lirelei stood firm through all of it. She spoke about choice, about love, about the right of every thinking being to decide their own future. She was no longer just asking for asylum. She was making a speech that would change how both species thought about individual freedom. Finally, the Zephyrian advisor said he needed to contact the council on their home world. While they waited for an answer, Lirelei was allowed to stay in a private room with a human guard. Jake found her there an hour later, sitting by the window and looking out at the stars. She looked small and alone, but her back was straight and her chin was up. "No matter what happens," Jake said, sitting beside her, "I'm proud of you." "Are you?" she asked quietly. "Even though I may have ruined the peace between our peoples, you haven't ruined anything. You've given both our peoples something to think about." 3 hours later, Captain Brooks came to get them. In the meeting room, the Zephyrian advisor looked tired and unhappy. "The council has made their decision," he announced. "They will allow Princess Lirelei to remain with the humans, but only under one condition." "What condition?" Captain Brooks asked. "Both species must agree to create a new kind of cultural exchange program. A permanent colony where beings from both worlds can live together and learn from each other. Princess Lirelei will help lead this colony." Jake felt his heart leap with hope. They weren't just allowing Lirelei to stay, they were using her choice as the foundation for something bigger. "The council believes," the advisor continued, "that if love truly is as powerful as the princess claims, then both our peoples should have the chance to explore this concept." Captain Brooks looked around the room. "And the humans agree to this?" "We do," said a voice from the back of the room. Admiral Richards, the head of human diplomatic operations, had arrived during the negotiations. "We think this could be the beginning of something wonderful." 6 months later, Jake and Lirelei stood together on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, the first interspecies colony. Around them, humans and Zephyrians worked together, learned together, and yes, Some of them were falling in love together. Oh. Do you ever regret your choice? Jake asked, holding Liralay's glowing hand in his. Never, she said, smiling at him with those beautiful purple eyes. I chose love, and love gave me everything I never knew I wanted. As they watched the stars together, Jake realized that sometimes the smallest choices could change the entire universe. And sometimes love really was strong enough to bridge any gap, even the gap between worlds.